So good evening ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vardhan and on behalf of Edureka, I welcome you all to this live session on Splunk. So in this YouTube live session, I'm going to explain everything that you need to know about Splunk to get started with that tool, right? So in the next 30 minutes, you're going to get a demonstration for 10 minutes and I'm going to give you a theoretical introduction to what Splunk is, and by the end of the 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure you will know why Splunk is the go-to tool for log analysis. And besides that, you will also understand why log analysis is really important. Okay, so without wasting much time, let me get started, and these will be the topics that I will cover. So first, I will talk about the problems with log data and tell you why is there a need for a tool like Splunk, right? And after that, I'll tell you what exactly Splunk is and how it is the ultimate solution for log processing. And then I'll talk about a few of the Splunk components that are involved, and I'll tell you how Splunk works. And finally, I will give you a demonstration of collecting logs from a remote instance and then putting them on to your Splunk instance and then performing analysis and visualization on that data, right? So I hope that has set the agenda for today. And without wasting any time, I'm going to go to the first topic, and that is why is there a need for, why is there a need to explore logs? There's a famous saying that logs are the go-to archives for gaining company-wide operational intelligence. Now, does anybody disagree with this? You can please put in your comment box, and if there are people who agree with this, then I would also request you to tell us why you think so. Because I have an answer with me, and it might be the same, it might not be the same. But anyways, you can get your answers coming in. In the meanwhile, let me tell you my half of it. So logs are something that get generated on computing devices and non-computing devices, right? And these devices nowadays, in today's world, they are really important for businesses, especially for those businesses which are online, which are on the internet. Take for example Edureka itself. Edureka is an online education place which is run on the internet, right? So our business is on the internet. Now in this case, don't you think we'll have a lot of logs which will manage, we'll have a lot of servers which will be generating a lot of logs, and we have a lot of servers because we'll have to manage a lot of people who will be accessing our website at any given time, correct? So we'll have a lot of logs for that purpose. We will have a server for that purpose, and then we'll have logs which get generated inside those servers. Now you can ask me what exactly these logs contain and why are they even relevant? Correct? I'll get to that but before I get to that, let me tell you, even systems have logs. Any basic system, even the machine which you're using to view this YouTube live session of mine, right? Even that will have logs being generated, and that will be stored in one location in one directory. But the thing is, we cannot read those logs. They are not in our readable format, but they have something really important stored in them. They have details about every single transaction and every single operation that happens on that device, okay? Be it a computing device or be it a non-computing device. So you have details about those things inside your logs. Now, what will be the operations and transactions that I'm talking about? They are these. In case of your server, you will have details about what is your background of your customers, what is the IP address of them, of those people, which is the location or the geography from where they are accessing it. You have those details, and then you will have details with respect to there being any security threats. Are there any vulnerabilities to your servers, to your network? Are there people accessing it from a very strange place? Are people eavesdropping on your network? You'll have answers to all these questions, but initially they are not just answers, they are just details. Along with all the other data, you have these data related to even these facts inside those logs, okay? And when it comes to system, you will have details about your system performance. What is the CPU usage? What is the load? How many users are accessing your CPU at what time? What did they try to access? And which application or which software is running in your system? And because of that, how is your system responding to it? So all these details, right? So anything that happens, any transaction, any operation that happens on your device, that gets registered in your logs. Now, since your logs have so many things. It's like a treasure. It's very tough. So I'm pretty sure you people would have played treasure hunt during your childhood, right? So logs are something like that. You can even think of gold mines, for example. They are like gold mines. Okay, you have to dig deep to get the actual benefits. But when you dig deep, when you get the actual data you're looking for, then you've just nailed it. You go to the next level where you know exactly what your problems are, how your operations are being performed, and if you tweak a few things here or there, then how that will impact your business. Now, when you have such answers, then you're definitely gonna be operating at a very high level, and this very act of operating on your this very act of understanding your business, understanding your data, and improving your operations is called as operational intelligence, correct? And the solution or the details about how to achieve operational intelligence, it's all hidden in your logs. And that is why exploring logs is really really important, especially in today's world where the internet and you know internet is ruling, correct? So this is the most important time that we need to leverage on logs. But like I said, exploring these logs, understanding these logs are not easy because they look something like this, correct? They are not in human readable form. Imagine this character here. Put yourself in her shoes. What would you feel when you look at these logs and when you are in a corner and you have to make a decision? Supposing you're informed that there is some security breach, okay, and you know that what the security breach is, what the problem is, you know that it is present in the logs. So how will you fix this problem? Can you read these logs and get some meaning out of this log? Can you? Definitely not, right? It's an impossible task. And such logs, they get generated massively. Almost thousands of such lines of codes get generated every single minute, in fact. And what happens is every single transaction, let's take for example the web server of any e-commerce company, or you can even take example of Edureka here. So every single user that is trying to access Edureka's website, or something like Amazon.com or Flipkart.com, their IP address will be recorded. Along with that, whatever clicks, whatever links they open, whatever action they perform on that website, those get recorded and they are stored on the web. They are stored on the logs inside the web server. Correct? Now that is an example of this. At that kind of a time, if you are told that there's a security breach and you have to identify where the problem is from and fix that problem, then how will you do it? At a sudden, instantly, how will you fix it? Impossible, right? You cannot check any threats in real time. You cannot analyze any business metrics also in real time. You cannot understand how many customers want to buy what products. You cannot do that. What you need for this is you need a tool which can understand your logs and explain it to you in a very simple manner. And that's where Splunk fits in. Correct? And as far as I'm concerned, Splunk is the ultimate log collection and analysis tool. Why? Because Splunk does all these things. Splunk does real-time log forwarding. Now, when we say real-time log forwarding, it means that it can collect logs from one particular instance or one particular server and forward those logs to a remote instance. Okay, so you can see that there's a system here, right? You can assume this as a server, probably a web server or a router. And from here, whatever logs are collected, they can be sent to the remote location. They can be sent to the searcher where the end users will be actually looking at the data and they'll be able to get insights. It'll be in a very human readable form at that time when it's here. So I will give you an example of how readable it is on Splunk and how non-readable it is from a server point of view when I show you the hands-on, okay? But for now, just understand this part that Splunk can do remote forwarding of data and let you visualize and get actual insights. It makes your job hell a lot of easy. That's one thing. The second point is that Splunk does real-time syslog analysis. Now again, syslog analysis is something like server analysis itself. But here it can be installed on any system of yours and it can monitor any application based on whatever system logs are being generated in real time, and you can perform analysis on that. And similarly, you can install Splunk on any servers and you can perform monitoring and understand what is the IP traffic, how many people are there on your website, what are they trying to perform, what actions are they trying to perform, are they trying to eavesdrop on your network, are they trying to are they genuine customers who are trying to buy something, and if they are buying something, then based on these logs you'll know what are their activities. So how do you think e-commerce companies are able to target you? There's something called as target marketing, right? Retargeting. So all that happens based on whatever is there on your logs. You get insights about your customer behavior. You understand if your customer is if he's probably trying to view a particular product a number of times, then it's an assumption that okay, he wants to buy that product, and based on that you get a hint that okay, you can give him an offer and close that deal. So that's what e-commerce companies are doing nowadays, right? So that's one thing, that's one example of how real-time server monitoring will help you. And besides this, I also explained how you can analyze security threats and all those things, right? So that's one more thing. So another application of Splunk is that it can do real-time, it can give you real-time alerts and notifications. So these alerts or notifications would come in handy when there's an actual security threat, or probably when something wrong is about to happen or something strange is happening to your servers. If someone is accessing your network from a very unreliable source, then immediately you can configure Splunk such that it would throw you an alert when it realizes that there's a request coming in from that particular IP range. That can be done, and probably you can also install Splunk on some system and monitor the CPU performance. And whenever the CPU performance or the usage crosses a threshold, then your system might crash. So at those times, when it crosses the threshold, immediately Splunk can give you an alert and tell you that okay, something's wrong that's going to happen over here, so do the needful, and you can immediately fix any of the forthcoming losses. You can avoid them altogether. That can be done. But most of all, there's one undervalued feature of Splunk, that is historical data store and performing analysis on that data, right? So people always think that it's just real time, but no, you can also do this. Whatever data comes in at real time, that can be stored in your Splunk indexers, which is nothing but the database for Splunk, and from there you can perform analysis. So you will have a set period of time till when you can perform analysis. Right now, let's say there's a concept of Splunk buckets, okay, and you can say that you set your bucket size for 30 days. That means that whatever logs have come in the last 30 days, that will be very easily accessible. And maybe beyond that 30 days, then you will have another bucket where it will be stored, and in that bucket it might be stored in a compressed format or in an archived format and things like that. But however, they can be retrievable. But beyond a certain time, you cannot store it, right? It will definitely get deleted. So something like that. So you can make use of all these historical data, log store, and you can gain a lot of business insights and a lot of advantages. And I might also want to tell you at this point of time that when Splunk stores data, it stores data in a compressed form. So it's not like whatever data comes in, it's going to be stored straight away. No, it's going to be compressed at one level, to one point of time, and then later when it gets archived, it will be compressed even more. So these are the different benefits that you get with Splunk, and that's why exploring logs is very, very easy with Splunk, and I would recommend you to do that. Okay. Now that is just about what Splunk is, but now let's talk about some of the customers that have used Splunk. Okay, let's understand a few use cases here. Few of these companies might be really popular here. Vodafone, Domino's, ING Bank. These are some really popular companies, but there is this one New York air brake, right? So this is one organization which is basically the US. They are part of the US Railroad Association, right? Now they are another success story, and they are the most magnificent stories that I've heard about a Splunk success story. Let me start explaining them one after the other. What did Vodafone achieve by implementing Splunk? Vodafone basically are using Splunk to manage big data and map key performance indicator. Any idea how Vodafone is generating big data and what they're doing with that big data? Anybody? Okay. So we all know that Vodafone is a telephonic service provider, correct? So what happens? Every call any customer makes, any user, or whenever he sends any message, there will be a lot of logs generated, correct? So the telephonic industry is one industry where a lot of logs get generated, and it's very tough to handle them. So that's where Vodafone has come in, and they've started using Splunk to manage these logs, which is nothing but big data. And based on whatever happens there, based on customer behavior, based on their pattern of usage, they can optimize it and give customers offers. if someone is probably trying to use a lot of internet, and then when his balance is going low or if his net pack is getting over, then at that time Vodafone can come in and give a very customized offer to that person and close in deals, right? So on a high level, that's an example I'm giving you, but yeah, that's how Vodafone is using Splunk. And this New York air brake, this is one other excuse me guys. So New York air brake, it's another company which used Splunk, and they saved around $1 billion in just 1 month by implementing Splunk. Well, what did they do? They used Splunk to monitor the logs of how the brakes, the logs of brakes being applied in the trains. Correct? So we have the New York Railroad, right? They are part of that organization, and whatever trains are, and whenever brakes are applied, those logs were recorded, and basically based on whatever data they collected, they analyzed that even braking for a few seconds during the journey of a train resulted in consuming a lot of fuel later when the brakes were released and acceleration was applied. Correct? So by just applying brakes and releasing them, and increasing the speed by hitting on the gas pedal, they realized that a lot of fuel was consumed, and this they got it through Splunk by analyzing the brake logs. And what did they do? They saved $1 billion in just 1 month, and it was US's railroad organization which saved so much money. That is about them. And then there is Domino's Pizza, which of course is another popular case, use case. And I've written a case study about these people, and I've written a blog on them. So if you want to read more about Domino's, then you can definitely go to one of my blogs on Edureka's page, and you can view it there. Okay, but what Domino's did was they understood the behavioral patterns of their consumers, whoever was buying their products. They understood at what time, on what dates their customers prefer to buy edible items, and based on those details, Domino's also gave certain offers which help them close deals faster and help them close customers and do target marketing. So that's one thing. And then there is ING Bank, right? So ING Bank they are one of those few banks which have come forward and said that they are using Splunk, because a lot of companies, a lot of banks have implemented Splunk, but they don't really reveal it. And ING Bank have been pretty brave in revealing that, and they've said that they use Splunk for faster troubleshooting of key application and get insight into customer behavior. Well, it's not just these things, not just troubleshooting certain applications or getting insight into certain customer behavior. It's also about monitoring the bank accounts, and are there any fraudulent transactions happening? Are there any failed attempts after which there's some kind of transaction happening? And if that's happening, they are there to make sure the transaction doesn't go through. Correct? So they can do that, but how will they do it? How will they realize that there's a fraudulent transaction happening? By basically analyzing logs that come in at real time. Correct? And who's going to do the analysis in real time? It's Splunk. Splunk is going to do the analysis and give it to the end user. The end user is here is nothing but ING Bank, and they can get insights into it and take actions accordingly. And similarly, there are a lot of other domains where Splunk is being used, and Splunk is one such tool which is used almost in every single business, because almost every business today are on the internet. They have an internet presence, right? So that's where Splunk really benefits, and that's where even companies using Splunk, they also get a real big benefit out of it. So that was about their customers and use cases. Let me go forward and actually talk about how Splunk works. Okay, let's talk about a few of the Splunk components now. Now, the most important components or the primary components in Splunk are those of forwarders, indexers, or searches. Okay, in a single instance deployment, you have these three components which you will be dealing with. But when you go to a more distributed deployment of Splunk, or usage of Splunk in a very vast manner, at that time you will have multiple forwarders in place, you'll have multiple indexers, again multiple search heads, and along with this you will have a few more components which would manage these basic components, and they are nothing but a deployer, cluster master, and deployment server. Okay, let me explain each of these components one after the other. What do forwarders do? Forwarders are basically responsible for collecting your data and forwarding it to another Splunk instance. And in this case, it would be the indexer. The indexer is where the data is being stored. Whatever logs come in real time or maybe not real time, that will all be stored in the indexer. But when it's inside the indexer, you can't just straight away look at this data. We got to use the search head, which will in turn access the data that is present in the indexer, and it will let you do the analysis or visualization and reporting, give you alerts, notification, all those things. So that happens at the search head. So we interact with the search head. The search head accesses the data from the indexer, and the indexer gets the data from the forwarders. Okay. If these three components do this much, then what about the other three components that you see on the screen? What do they do? You can have that question. Now that's where the concept of a distributed deployment comes. When you have a massive infrastructure, when you have a lot of data coming in, then one indexer, one forwarder, and one search head is not enough, because your data needs to be safe, correct? You cannot have data loss or you cannot have downtime. So for that purpose, you have other components like deployer, cluster master, and deployment server in place. What does a deployer do? The deployer is basically responsible for making sure that any updates to configurations or any updates to operations like server saved searches, like reporting, all those things are sent to the clusters. Okay. Now all these clusters which are there here, they are also called cluster members, and these clusters together, they are called search head clustering. Okay. This concept is called search head clustering, and the deployer is basically responsible for scheduling or sending any updates and monitoring all the clusters, all the search heads in this search head clustering. And similarly, you have all the indexers, right? So they are called indexers or peer nodes in a distributed environment, and these are basically monitored by your cluster master. Your cluster master is the most important component in your distributed deployment, and your master will always be responsible for two things: checking your indexer clustering. This is called indexer clustering. Okay, your cluster master will be responsible for making sure all your peers in your indexer cluster are active, they are up, there's no downtime, there's replication of data that is happening. A lot of you might be aware of data replication. So data replication is nothing but replicating, having multiple copies of data so that you have high availability. So that's what this does. And your cluster master ensures that all these nodes are up and running at all the time, and there's replication happening, and your Splunk instance is behaving as per your expectation. And besides that, it also manages your different search heads, and it tells your search heads where to look for data. Supposing a search head wants to search for data in the indexer, which is again stored in a remote location, which IP to go to, which indexer to access and get data. So all these answers the cluster master would give to the captain over here in the search head cluster. Okay. And then you have the deployment server, which is similar to deployer. The deployer would issue configuration updates to the cluster members, right? But the deployment server would do a similar job to the forwarders. If there's any change in the kind of data you want to pull from the source and send to the destination, then those updates, those application updates or configuration updates, all those updates you would be sending and scheduling through your deployment server, right? That's how the changes would be brought into effect inside the forwarders. So on a high level, this is how things work. Okay, these are the different components, and this is a very complicated diagram if you're new to Splunk, right? But don't worry, we will have a couple more live sessions on Splunk where I will explain things in a more better fashion. Incrementally, I'll explain the different components, right? But before I do that, before I go on to talk about what I'll do in the next session, I want to wrap up today's session with a demonstration. Okay, so here I explained the forwarder, the indexer, and the search head. So what I will do in my demonstration is that I will collect data from my forwarders and send it to another instance, which is nothing but my indexer. Now since I will be using a single instance deployment, then it's just going to be one indexer and one search head. So I can do both those things from my the instance where the data is coming to. Okay, so that's what I am going to do, and this is called, of course, log collection with the help of a universal forwarder. So let me get started with my demonstration, and for my demonstration I'm going to use AWS instances where I have installed Splunk. Okay, over there I will configure the syslogs to go from one instance to another instance, and I'll show you how Splunk plays a major role there, right? So I'm gonna first of all open up the AWS instances, and guys, do give me a confirmation if you can see my screen here. Okay, I suppose my screen is visible here. So this is my AWS instance where I have a couple of in fact, I created this whole cluster of instances for my Splunk distributed deployment. Okay, but however, I'm not going to explain each of them today. As if you remember from the slides, you can recall all these components. There's a deployer and a deployment server. There's a cluster master. There are two indexers in this in my deployment here, and then there are again two searches, and then there is one universal forwarder. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how to use a universal forwarder to collect logs and send it to one remote instance on which I'm going to perform analysis and analyze that system logs. Okay, I'm going to take two AWS instances. Sorry, I'm going to take two AWS instances for that purpose. And let me first start off by bringing up my servers. Okay, let me first refresh my AWS console. And I'm going to log into my AWS instances with the help of PuTTY, since I'm using Windows. Okay, now this is my cluster master. This is the IP address, and let me put in the IP address and log into the instance. Okay, this is the key, and I say open. Okay, successfully logged into my cluster master. Now let me log into my universal forwarder. So this is the IP address. Let me create another PuTTY instance. So here I'm choosing my private key, and I say open, and my connection is established for my forwarder also. Okay, so great. If you can recall, then this is my, what you see on the left is basically my cluster master, and this is my universal forwarder. Okay, I'm just going to maximize these two terminals. Right now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how to install Splunk. Okay, in fact, I already have it installed, but I'm anyways going to show it to you because it's a simple process. I'll just show it to you end to end from the beginning. But remember that whenever you have to run Splunk through the CLI, then you have to always be logged in through root user. So always give this command sudo su and then start performing your operations or commands, right? You need root privilege for that. Okay, so anyways, moving forward, let's go to the OPT directory where we need to install any add-on applications to your server or to your system, right? On Linux, that's how it works. So when I did an ls, you can see that there's already Splunk installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove Splunk. Okay, I'm going to use the command Splunk. Okay, so I've removed Splunk, and this is just the tar file, right? So similarly, let me go to my universal forwarder. Okay, I'm going to do a cd and move to the OPT directory, and over here there is the Splunk forwarder already installed, so I'm going to remove this. Okay, great. So now I'm going to install both these the universal forwarder and my Splunk enterprise instance from scratch, and since I have a tar file, I can run the command tar-xvf and the file name, the tar file name. Okay, and when I hit enter, my file will start getting extracted. Okay, similarly, let me go to my enterprise instance and do the same here. Let me say tar-xvf Splunk. Okay, so even this is getting extracted. Now in the meanwhile, let me go to my universal forwarder and start performing my operations. So I'm going to clear my screen once. Now, guys, you got to remember one thing, okay? Before you get your Splunk instance set up, you have to make sure that you set the right permissions for your folder. So you have to always give the read, write, execute access to your to this folder, even if whether it's a root user or if it's any other user, okay? And the command to give the complete access is this. This is the command: chmod 777 and the folder name. So in my case, it's going to be Splunk forwarder, right? So I've set my permissions over here. Let me do the same thing on my Splunk enterprise instance also. ls, okay, I have my folder here. I'm going to say chmod -r and the Splunk folder. Okay, since the permissions have been set, let me start bringing up my instances. Okay, this is my enterprise instance, which is going to do my which is going to be my indexer and my search head. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to start the Splunk instance. To start the Splunk instance, you have to go to the bin folder inside Splunk's directory. Okay, and over here, if you do an ls, you can see we have a number of files and scripts, and there's this Splunk which we have to start, this daemon. Okay, so I'm going to say /Splunk start. But since I'm starting Splunk for the first time after downloading and installing it, you have to remember, you have to give this flag of accept license. Okay, well, even if you don't give it, it's fine, but it's just that when you don't give accept license, you'll be prompted to keep scrolling down until you agree to the complete document. So it's just a shorter way to get your Splunk instance up and running. So it says my web server is up at this IP address. So let me go to my Splunk enterprise instance. Okay, so that was my cluster master, right? So this is the public IP. I can access it through my public IP. Okay, I'm gonna just paste the public IP here and port number 8000. Okay. So there we go. On port number 8000 of this Splunk server of mine, I have my Splunk enterprise instance running. Okay, and this enterprise instance is what would be my indexer and search it for this demonstration. And remember, guys, whenever you install Splunk, the first time when you're logging in, it would ask you to change your password. So first time it's going to be admin itself, and then the password would be change me the first time when you log in. Okay, after you log in, it will prompt you to change the password, so do that also. I'm entering a password here, and when you do it for the first time, you have to do something similar to that. Save password, and then this is basically my enterprise instance. Okay, this is how Splunk looks like, and you can easily search for data from this application. And before I get to this, okay, let me show you this first of all. When I clicked on that app, search app and reporting, let me show you that I don't have any data right now in my instance. Okay, to give you an example, I can search my index. Okay, because index is where always your data is stored. Okay, the default index would be main, so I'm going to search for the main index, and I've checked for data all time, and you can see that there are no results found. That's because I have not sent any logs or any data to this particular instance. Now, to do that, to send my system logs or my server logs, which is on which my Splunk forwarder is installed, I have to first send data, right? That is the first step. So let me do that. Since I've extracted the folder here, I can straight away start the Splunk instance over here also. So let me first go to the Splunk folder. Inside here, there's a bin folder. Okay, I go in here by doing a cd command, and in here, when I do an ls, you can see that I have so many files, and again there's a Splunk script which I need to execute. Okay, I'm going to do a Splunk start. This time I'm not using the accept license. I'm just doing it just to show you that it's a painful task to do if you do not say accept license. You can see here, right, it says more 4%, so you have to keep hitting enter until you read the entire document. So we can stop this by hitting Control C, and to just avoid this particular to avoid this thing having to scroll down and until you completely read the file, you can use the flag accept license, right? So this is the flag, and when you hit enter, okay, I have a spelling error here, so that's why it didn't recognize. Okay, now I should be good. Yes, so this time it just completely accepted my license. By when I specified accept license, it assumed that I accept the license, and then it just straight away started my Splunk instance. Now if you noticed, when I started my enterprise instance, it said that my web interface is active at this port number on this IP address, correct? But however, for my Splunk forwarder, that did not happen. It just says that it started my Splunk server daemon, but it did not show me, because for your Splunk forwarder, you do not have a GUI. You cannot access it through the web. It's only the CLI and the configuration files through which you should access Splunk or make settings and configure data in, right? So you will not have a GUI, but however, I will whatever logs that I need to send, I can send it by just running command through my CLI, and that's what I'm going to do. But which data am I going to send to my Splunk indexer? That let me first figure out. Let's see where my system logs are stored. So this particular server system logs, since it's a Linux machine, it would always be stored at this particular folder, right? Inside my var folder there is lib. So let me do a cd lib, correct? Okay, not lib. There should be a log folder. System log would be present over here. So I'm going to say cd log, and when I do ls, you can see that I have a syslog file. Okay, now I'm going to do a cat command to show you how big the logs would be. Okay, when you hit enter, you can see this, right? This data is unstructured, and this is definitely not in readable format, and you have this data that will keep getting generated every few seconds, and there's simply a lot of data. Now, is it readable? Definitely not, correct? So what is the solution if I want to read this and get insights out of this log data? Send it to my Splunk instance, to my enterprise instance, which is going to act as my indexer and search it, and then perform analysis over there, correct? So that's what I'm going to do. Since it's present in my /var/log folder, let me go back to Splunk's bin folder and then execute the command to forward data. So I'm going to say /opt/Splunk forwarder and bin. Okay, here I'm going to run the command ./Splunk add forward server, and then I have to give the IP address of the instance to which I want to send this data, right? So the IP address of this particular instance, I can find it over here. So this is the cluster master, correct? So this is the IP address. I'm going to copy this, go back to my instance, and when I paste it here, along with the IP address, I have to specify the port number where that Splunk instance would listen to data, correct? There are a number of ports which will be open in Splunk, and for receiving data, the default port number is 9997, correct? So I need to specify that over here. So by specifying this, I'm basically telling this particular forwarder of mine to add a particular server to where I want to forward data. Okay, and the server address is this one, and send to port number 9997 of this particular server address, correct? So let me hit enter, and it says your session is invalid, please log in. Okay, the username is admin, and the password would be change me, correct? Because the first time when you try to log in, it should be admin and change me. After that, after you log in, it would be you can change the password, but however for a forwarder you cannot change the password. So at first login you have to change the password. So let me just retry that. Okay, sorry, let me just execute this command once again. I'm going to clear the screen. Okay, I'm going to enter this command, and the username is admin by default, and the default password would be change me, CHANGEME. Enter. There you go. It says added forwarding to this particular IP address and to this port number in that IP address. So the data forwarding pipeline is ready, but at this point of time I've still not mentioned which file to forward. Correct? That's what I'm going to do now. Let me do a clear command and run the command to forward data. And the command to forward data is again /Splunk. However, this time it would be add monitor. Okay, add monitor, and then after specify the path of the place where the file is present. And if you remember, it was there in my root var log syslog. Correct? Syslog was the name of the file, and it was present in this path, if you remember. And along with specifying which file you want to send, you should also specify which index you want to store this data in. Okay, the data would go to my indexer instance, and over there the indexer I want to store this data in should be mentioned over here with a flag. So -index, and I'm going to say let's just store it in index main. Okay, and then I'm going to specify the source type. So source type, for those of you who are new to Splunk, source type is basically used to identify the type of data coming in, right? So it's pretty obvious from the name itself, source type, so type of data. So I'm going to say it's my forwarders server logs. So let me give the name my universal forwarder server logs. Okay, I'm going to say enter, and what am I told? I'm told that it's added the monitor of this particular file. So at this point of time, the data might be going into my instance, but there might be one problem right now. The data might still not be available at my indexer, because over here I have not opened the port number 9997 from where it can be listening for data. Correct? So if I want to accept data, then I have to open the port number 9997, and to do that, the command is Splunk enable listen and followed by the port number, that is nothing but 9997. Okay, I need to log in here also. Let me say admin, and this time it is a different password because I changed my password at first login. Okay, it says listening for Splunk data on the TCP port number 9997. Very good. So now if I open the GUI of this particular indexer instance, I can see all my data. Okay, so this is that particular instance, right? So let me just go back to the home dashboard. Okay, refreshed it, and when you go to the search and reporting option that you see over here, so everything here is categorized as applications. Okay, so this is the default application that you get with Splunk. So if you want to search what data is there in your index, then you got to click here, and when you go here, you'll get a lot of options. So along with that, it's also saying that I have got 4020 events indexed. Okay, and less than a day ago. That's because I sent it now in real time. Correct? The latest event that was generated was 17 minutes ago. Correct? So let me start searching for data. If you remember my data, I was storing it in index main. So I'm going to say the index where I want to search for data, and I'm going to say index is going to be main, and over here I'm going to say search. And as you can see, whatever I entered over there, whatever logs I wanted to forward from my forwarder instance, that has been forwarded over here. If you remember, I gave the source type as my universal forwarder server logs. Correct? And it's also giving me the same IP address. I can show you, I can verify that also. Remember, the private IP is 172.172.30.0.123. Now if I go here, and this is the cluster master, correct? So here if you scroll down, you can see the private IP address, which is nothing but, okay, sorry, this is the private IP address, DNS name, right? So this is where it's being sent. Oops, sorry, I think I explained it wrong. What am I saying? The data is coming in from a universal forwarder, correct? So my universal forwarder IP address would be this 172.30.0.123, and that is the same that you see in my instance of indexer. IP address is the same. Var/log/syslog is the source from where my data is coming in. This is the host, and this is the source type is my universal forwarder server logs. Okay, perfect. Now whatever events are coming in, so in your logs you will have events, right? So you'll have multiple events coming in, and those events would be different. They would have different values for different transactions. So the difference would be only that, and that is what is going to come in here as different events. And if you want to identify each of them, you can simply see it here. If you want to drill down and filter the data over here, then you can choose which you want. You can, if you see on the left hand side, you have selected fields, which are nothing but the default fields, and then you have interesting fields. So if you choose the host, then you will only get all the data from this particular host. Okay, when I clicked on that, the automatically it got filtered over here. In this case, I'm getting data in only from one particular source, so I have only one host over here. But however, in a real instance, if you have configured multiple forwarders, then you will have multiple hosts over here, and you can check which host sent you which data or what data. That you can do. Similarly, the same thing with source type. I have only configured one input. That is the thing. But however, you have other fields where there is a change in data. So you have different options here. So the date, the hour in which the event came in. Okay, so you have different values for it. So you can choose that. You can choose one of them, and you can choose on which month of the day your events are coming in. So you can see that values are 16th and 15th. It says on the 15th, these many events have come in, and on the 16th, these many events have come in. Now that is because, if you see, that is because this may be running, I'm running this particular instance in a US server. So for that, because of that purpose, it might be showing me two different time zones. That's one thing. And then it has other filters saying at which minute how many events came in. So at the 56th minute of the hour, we've got 730 events, correct? And on the second minute of the hour, we've got 727 events. So if I click on this 56, then I have a few more events, correct? So it says from this IP address, and on the 56th minute of every hour, maybe 2 o'clock and 56 minutes, 3 o'clock or 56 minutes, at these times we have these many events coming in. If you want to filter this data even more, you can do that also. On the 56th minute, you can choose on you can choose on how many, choose from the number of days that you have. So right now it's showing that only I've got data in only on the 16th, right? This is the month of day. So if I choose 16th, it's not going to filter too many things, but yeah, that's another filter that can be applied. But if you want to filter this data even more, then you can click on this date second. Okay, so here it shows that on the 24th second of any minute, we've got these many events coming in, and on the 25th second, and so on. These are the different seconds on which we have multiple events coming. So on the 24th event, if I filter it for that time, then you can see that they all have a similar time frame, and these are all those logs. Okay, and then you have the difference can be viewed here, but of course this is just a system log, and here there's not much of insights which I can show you, and I cannot do a, there's no point in showing you a report over here. Okay, but however, in my next live session, I would give you a more detailed explanation of the Splunk search and reporting commands. Okay, these are some of the search and reporting commands. These are just a few of them. I will give you a detailed explanation of a number of other commands in my next live session, and I'll teach you more. Hopefully we can learn a lot from each other. You can ask me a couple more questions and I'll get back to you on that. and that is going to be one session, and that session is going to be knowledge objects. Okay, because these are all knowledge objects at the end of the day. That's one thing. And I'll also probably have another session where I will show you a distributed cluster. I will show you everything from indexer clustering to search it clustering and to setting up your remote forwarders. So whatever deployment, whatever components that you see here, right? All these components I would instantiate on different instances and show you a complete end-to-end distribution of Splunk. And that is what is a day-to-day activity of a Splunk administrator. And I don't need to remind you how valuable Splunk administrators are in organizations, right? So these topics, however, would be coming in my upcoming sessions. But till then, stay tuned, guys. This is pretty much the end to this particular demonstration of mine. So let me just go back to my slides and conclude today's session. And in the meanwhile, you can put in your questions and I'll pick up a few of those questions. Okay? And these were the topics that I covered. This is just my session in a minute. I spoke about the importance of logs and the need for Splunk. I spoke about what exactly is Splunk. I spoke about the different components, and I gave you a demonstration of how to collect logs from remote instances and perform analysis on that data. Fantastic, right? So on that note, let me conclude today's session. But if you guys have put any questions, let me just take them up. Let me see what questions have come in. Okay, so I cannot see a number of questions here, any relevant questions. So anyways, guys, any doubt, you can of course comment on this video itself, and later I'll get my technical team to reply to those questions. Alright, so let me just show you one more thing before that. I want to show you that, I want to let you know that there's a survey form which you can fill, and when you fill the survey form, you stand a chance to win, avail an exclusive discount. Right? I would request you to fill in this form, and someone from my team would be sending you the link to this on the chat box. So pick it up from there and fill this out. And you can also, of course, mention if you want to be notified of any other live sessions and on which topics you want to be notified of. So you'll get those details. And for those of you who are serious about becoming a Splunk administrator and power user, then we have Edureka. We have a course over here, and you can check out the course from this URL, and you can check out all the course details here. And of course, this was the blog which I was speaking about. Splunk use case, Domino is a success story. You can read the entire blog to understand how Splunk was a big help to Domino's and growing their business during their young years. And finally, we also have a YouTube presence, and you can check out our Splunk tutorial playlist here. Right, you can check it out on our Edureka channel. And guys, most of all, remember to subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon if you want to be notified of any live events in the future. Okay, so I think that's it from my side. I'll be concluding today's session on that note, and see you again next time.